Okay. What's up, everybody? It's Chad. We're back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. Well, sort of. Today's going to be a short episode. I'm just going to give you guys a quick rundown of what's gone on the past week, what I was working on and everything. Actually, Gino was in on with me on this meeting, so I wanted to kind of get you guys in on the know what's going on with that as well. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. Like I said, this isn't going to be very long, maybe 15, 30 minutes at the most. I just wanted to really get everybody updated on what's going on. Sorry, I have it on my phone too. What's going on and what we've been working on the past week. So we've had those break-ins, the past couple weeks here in Cruces, a couple months actually. It's been, going on, but the past few weeks has, been pretty bad. And we've been covering that, I've been getting information back and forth. But what I decided to do was get with a lot of the businesses that had been affected with this, and then get some meetings going with some city officials and stuff. So we got a meeting with the police chief, and then we also had someone from Econ Development that was in on the meeting as well too. We had quite a few people from the industry show up. I had a little chat with some of these people, and I told them, hey, if there's anybody else that you feel needs to be in on this, please send it to them, so that way we can get as many people that have been affected by this in on this meeting, so we can get some information, maybe some help, and some good stuff like that, and maybe figure out what to do going further. I let Gino in on the conversation. I figured, it was important that my producer hear this as well too, so that way we can get a chime in. But I mean, Gino, go ahead and say what's up to everybody.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for inviting me. It was actually, I thought, a really good meeting, and like I said, I just like being there behind the scenes and kind of seeing this stuff. I know you've done several different things where you've gotten everybody together. You've done your little town halls and other stuff like that. But it was nice to go in there, and actually I felt that there were some good things that were said and some unfortunate things as well, as far as the overall situation. But yeah, it was a good meeting, I think.
No, I did too. It was a really great meeting. It started out, of course, the chief of police was the one who set up the meeting for us, and so all we did was click a link and join him. So he was the one essentially hosting it. I was kind of helping him co-host the meeting, making sure people got in. I let people know, hey, we're about to start. We did get a couple people, come in a little bit later, but that's okay. We were there for almost an hour with them, so they had plenty of time to ask questions and grease and stuff like that. And we did have a couple people ask similar to same questions, and I think that was the reason is people were just coming in at different times, and so they didn't get to hear all the same information that everyone else got to hear. But it was great. The chief of police, he was really helpful, really informal, and really told us what was going on. And to be honest, a lot of what's going on is out of their hands, and we got that gist and that confirmation from them that they can only do so much. They can file the charges, they can make the arrest, but they're not the judge, they're not the jury, they're not the people prosecuting. So that's where the hangup is we have these kids, and they're teenagers. The youngest was 12. I think the oldest they caught was 16. They're getting caught with this, and one of them literally drove a vehicle into one of the smoke shops. Mm-hmm. And essentially nothing's going to happen to these kids, after they go through the whole thing, they're minors. So essentially they just get let off because they're underage.
Well, they won't necessarily get let off. They'll have some probation or something else like that. But it's not, I'm going to put it this way. They're not going to necessarily go to jail. And if anybody who's been following Chief's story and the issues that he's been dealing with, and some of the things that's been going on since the Young Park shooting, actually, and a little bit before that, there's a real issue with, and not just kids, but adults, that they're repeat offenders, and they keep getting let out. They keep doing all this, and they just keep coming back, committing the crimes. And I do feel some sympathy for Chief's story and what he's got to go through, because one, they're shorthanded, and it's like every police force is shorthanded because nobody wants to be a cop anymore. Wonder how that happened. Yeah. So they're shorthanded. All these crimes are happening, and it's very kind of loosely fit, where they're either emulating people from other towns, larger towns, or other stuff like that. I think he mentioned that. And to be honest, they're really quick. I even think the person they had the car ran into, it's like, yeah, they ran a car in there, grabbed a bunch of stuff, and were out in like 2 minutes or less than that.
They actually said the less than a minute.
And less than a minute, and they were gone, and the cops were there in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, like, and to be honest, I was really shocked on both instances. And I know robberies can happen quick, but with under a minute, they were in and out. Like these kids didn't look like amateurs in that sense. You know what I mean? Like an amateur, they may take 2-3 minutes and may have got caught, but these kids were in and out and knew exactly what to do. And Chief Story did mention that social media has another play on this. So they'll post on like TikTok and stuff like, oh, this worked in New York and blah, blah, blah. This is how you do it. They'll give them full on instructions on how to do this. And, you know, the thing is I get taken down for cannabis content, but people are teaching people how to fucking rob people and they're allowed to stay up. And that shit blows my mind. I'm like, go ahead.
Here's a really good one. If you weren't aware, the state of New Mexico is suing Meta, Facebook. Because of bad influence on kids and all this other stuff like that. And they're going like, what we want age verifications and all this other stuff. And Meta says, well, we just won't do anything in New Mexico. They'll geolock it or whatever. But here's the thing about that. And when they say, well, the companies need to keep these kids off their platforms, there are age restrictions. You can't get a Facebook account unless you're a certain age. Guess what? People lie.
Yeah.
And they get in there anyway.
Asking you.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know how much people want other people to, this is going to sound so bad. And I do feel like I'm crossing that line into old man yelling at clouds again. But like, where are the parents? Where are the parents doing all this? I think somebody even said, oh, the parents know what's going on. They're probably even a little bit a part of it. So,
and that's the unfortunate part, like and I've said this many times before, no matter what we do, the police will majority be a reactive force. They don't have enough people to patrol every dispensary. And that's what they were told, because a couple of people asked if they could get more patrols, but they're undermanned and understaffed. And even if they did have more staffing, they still probably wouldn't have been able to, be there, because they have to be there at the exact right time to catch it. Because if they're in and out within under a minute, then that doesn't give them much time to respond other than someone being there actively. So it was just an unfortunate situation, and our state laws that we currently have right now are not helping. We also can't tell people we can't really force parents to do certain things either. So it's a really tricky thing. Do we create more strict laws on when kids mess up? Do we also punish the parents, or do we stop treating kids like kids who are the craziest of offenders? We have these kids that are running around with guns, they're shooting people, they're robbing people, they're ramming freaking vehicles into businesses to steal. These aren't regular criminal kids. They're not stealing porn mags from the fucking, the bookstore or something like that. They're not stealing candy bars or drinks or something like that. So it's nothing like that. This is like serious shit.
Absolutely. And that's another one of the things that Chief Story pointed out, that it's not just the cannabis stores that are getting hit. There's the burglaries that are on all over, car burglaries that have been happening. And some people might remember the gun store that also had a car ran into it. And, they got some weapons that were taken out of that gun store, out of the whole thing. And in fact, even I believe there's a few weeks ago, they had another car to 2-3 o'clock in the morning that tried to not get away from the cops, but just kind of made a crazy turn to not go towards the cop. Ended up being a bunch of kids in there as well, and they had some weapons in the car, which was part of my question when I had a chance to ask a question to Chief Story, and that was, is it kind of somewhat the nature of the business with cannabis and the federal laws? Because I know at some point in time, with the kids and the weapons, the ATF is going to get involved, right? Because they don't stand for that stuff. They don't play. Is it just the nature of the business that you have that not even getting assistance in the federal way? Because Chief Story has done that before with a lot of these repeat offenders. He'll try and charge them federally instead of via the state or local. And I think he came up with that answer that sometimes the local has the first chance to go ahead and prosecute these cases, and when they decide to do that, they don't give them away.
Yeah.
They don't let the feds go because we're going to do it. And then once again, your hands are tied.
Yeah. Unless something else crazy happens and,
Yeah.
the federal government takes over jurisdiction, yeah, you're most likely going to be stuck with the state one. And if it doesn't go somewhere, they'll try something else. But, that's the unfortunate part. So it looks like there's going to have to be some legislative changes that we're going to have to be a part of to push. And I even mentioned everybody else, too, that was on the meeting. I said, this sounds like we're going to need a legislative change if we want something to actually happen, because right now it seems that the parents don't even give a shit. And to be honest, some of these kids that are a part of this, their parents, like you said, either they know not a part of it, or they are, a part of their life, or they're a part of this in general, so like they're helping them. Like they had to get the vehicle from somewhere, like either they took it from a parent or it was given to them and they got a split.
Or they stole it. I think
exactly.
Chief Story said that a couple of the vehicles that were used were stolen.
Yeah, and that too. That's freaking. And people have been talking about, hey, my vehicle got stolen, this and that, and they're probably using them for thefts and stuff.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to mention is I did mention within the comments of that conversation that Las Cruces is one of the only cities that allows for 24/7 operations when it comes to retails for cannabis here in New Mexico, or in the city. So you can operate 24 hours a day. And what we found with those, and Chief Story actually backed this up with real-time data, we're seeing people have less issues being open 24/7 than closing when it comes to being broken into and everything, because it's hard to break into somewhere when it's already open and there's people there actively. They don't want someone there. And to be honest, they don't want to rob them with a weapon, because that does trigger ATF stuff and other things too. So they're. And Chief Story, someone on the panel had asked, I think they're from Top Crop, had asked, for the numbers of that, like I know someone had mentioned it, they mentioned that I mentioned it. And, well, what are the stats on that? Like, is it really, would it be safer for us to move to 24/7, operations? And Chief Story said, to be honest, the numbers that we look, for armed robbery is a significant minority compared to just break-ins and theft. Like they're normally not armed. If they are armed, it's like they're punching somebody, or they use like an object to hit them. It wasn't like brandishing a gun. He said, so your chances of being robbed by a weapon is a lot lower, not zero, a lot lower than it is just robbed any other way. So they're not going to rush in while you're open and everything and rob you that way. Can it happen? Of course, it does happen, but it is not the common way that is happening and everything. And if they do, these kids are underage. They shouldn't have a gun in the first place. ATF gets involved, and then we might start seeing a lot of these federal charges coming in. And sometimes when a kid is 16, 17, they will trial them as an adult. Yeah. So there is that option that the older ones, they could get tried as an adult, especially if this lingers on a little bit further. So we're not for sure what's going on, but there could be a chance. It's just unfortunate that, kids young as 12 years old are being involved in this, but they should be paying for what they've done as well too. Like being a kid doesn't excuse you from destroying things and, destroying livelihoods, like that does not excuse you whatsoever. There should be some kind of punishment. May it be the parents involved too, or, just the kid. Something needs to happen, because these kids are doing this because there are no punishments for them. They essentially get off scotch-free because they're minors. And that has led them to find a loophole, essentially, and crime can be done by kids as long as you're under 18, and no one's going to be able to do anything. And there was a bunch of frustration that you could tell that was coming from even the smoke shop owners, not just the dispensary owners. The smoke shop owners, showed real frustration because thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in damage, not just product stolen, in damage happened that, when that break-in happened. So it's really unfortunate that they have to foot the bill. Now, we did have someone from Econ Development that was in on the call. Thank you so much. Her name was Blair. She was great. She helped us out a lot with great information. There are some grants that the city has that we could use for stuff like this when it happens. Because like you said, cannabis isn't the only one that this happens to. It happens to other people. And one of the grants is for when you fix your security or you add more security features to your business, they will reimburse you. And I think it's up to $5,000 for us. So if you get cameras, a new door, something like that, they can do that. But it's only on Valley and Picacho, the worst areas of town. And that's the reason why they have that. Now, she did tell me during the conversation that I had with her initially, I don't know if she mentioned it during the meeting, I didn't hear it. They do eventually want to make it citywide, but that's going to take some years and adapting and, of course, all that other shit. Because I believe this is like a pilot program. There is a federal grant for this, but this is where it gets kind of crazy. Cannabis, tobacco, alcohol, sex stores, and a couple others are not allowed to have that. I had no clue that even like a sex shop does not get the same benefits that other businesses get. You know, they're discriminated against like cannabis. And I think that's bullshit because they pay their taxes just like everyone else, you know. So be it. If the grandma down the street doesn't like that it's there, it's still a legitimate business.
I'm unfamiliar with the shops that you speak of, but yeah, that is just not cool. And that's what I was thinking. That's one of the things that I was asking Chief Story, is because of the nature of the business that everyone's in. You know, that's part of that federal thing, that it's just questionable. You don't know what's going to happen. And to be honest, like I said, I was feeling frustration. I was feeling the frustration from people that were there, especially that smoke shop where they had the car go through them. Because
that was the worst.
And even Chief Story made that difference between a burglary where somebody just basically robs you blind, as opposed to a robbery where someone is there and strong arm robbery aggravated with the weapon. Because I've had my apartment broken into. I've been burglarized before. You know, lost TV, the old school PlayStation that back then, you know, VCRs, tapes, videos, movies, all that other stuff. They basically just wiped out my entire living room. And, you know, it's so hard to try and go ahead and track these people down. Luckily for a lot of these shops, they've got video cameras up there because they have to, you know. So that is a plus. But, yeah, you have to go through the expense of replacing all of that stuff or repairing any of the items and stuff. Luckily for me, there was nothing broken as far as material in the house, but as far as everything that was in there, you know, I had to go through the expense of replacing all that. And that's just personally, not as a business. So I can't even imagine all the things that you have to go through. And then with these shops, because you have to keep track of all your product and everything else, that all you have to go through there to figure out what was gone, what was missing, how much was taken, everything else like that. So, because they've got to track all of that.
Yeah, they do. And even through the state. So when you get robbed at the state, you have to let the CCD know that it happens. So that way it's accounted for, because all of our product is tracked. It's not like, you know, the smoke shop where they just order from a supplier and they get it. No big deal. Unless they're selling tobacco and stuff. I don't know how that really works on the tobacco side, but mostly for like the smoking accessory stuff, they just order it, sell it, and it's no big deal. But for a cannabis side, you know, if you get robbed or, you know, something like that, or someone steals from you, you have to report it. And unfortunately, they had to report it to CCD and go through the whole 9 yards. But luckily, that also triggers investigations and stuff like that too at some point, and it does help them with paper trails in the future if they need it. But it does suck that, you know, they have to report it like, hey, we got broken into. And like Top Crop, they've been broken into like 3 times, like the last month, or, you know, like the past month. And that's unfortunate. I went the other day and there was, you know, something on the window, you know, because they just replaced it not long ago. And I was like, this is ridiculous. You know, like these kids are getting away literally with murder sometimes. And, you know, it's getting kind of ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. The Young's Park situation, those kids were not going to get off on that. That was just too big of a deal. There was too much, you know, harm done on something like this. You know, we're just seeing businesses being affected. And that's the unfortunate part, is it's not life that was threatened, you know, but it was someone's livelihood, which could essentially, you know, translate to someone's life, you know, being threatened, you know, like you're threatening my livelihood. You're threatening my life, you know, like this is how I get by. If I don't get this, I'm on the streets, and who knows what's going to happen from there. Yeah. And so,
I mean, you say that, you know, all these businesses that run on such a small margin anyway, you know, it's the same thing. You think, oh, these guys are making so much money. I'm going like, no, you're not making money. And you're definitely not going to make any money off of all the product that just went missing. So,
yeah. Definitely. But it was a great meeting. One thing I do want to say is someone mentioned that they're going to be adding, you know, some features in front of the store, like the big balls or the poles.
The ballards.
Yeah. And also, you know, gates, you know, that come down from the outside so they can't get in that way, which is smart. You know, when I worked for Apple, and I've mentioned this several times before, you know, and, you know, you worked for Apple too, but when I worked at the Apple store, every store I went to, they had a pull down thing, and ours was in the mall. Like the mall shut down at a certain time and they still had the pull down thing. So just in case the mall got broken into, you know, the store was still safe. And like that was like their secondary kind of thing. And it worked. You know, no one was able to get in and break the windows. And I think till to this day, the only time that they get theft is when those kids run in and just grab iPhones that are on the thing. And to be honest, those are locked already. So you're pretty much just buying a brick, or you're stealing a brick. But what these guys do is they go and they sell it on the traditional market or the black market. And,
not only are they
just scam somebody.
Technically they're brick, but technically they're highly trackable too. As soon as you try and connect anything to a Wi-Fi or something like that. So, but that is, and you may notice some of the anti-theft stuff that are up at regular businesses that you may not even think about. If you're going to a grocery store or some department store or anything else like that, all those metal poles that are in front of those glass doors, they're there for a reason. You think about, say the Cineport over at the mall, they got those big giant blue balls. That's sorry. But they got those giant balls that are in front of the glass windows, and it's not for decoration. It's actually, to make it more difficult for anybody who would try and ram a car in through there or try and go through there. Because, you can take a car through a window, but it's going to be a lot harder to try and get it through a wall. And
or
not impossible, because Strikers was a wall. But, you can see that, and you notice that. And you start noticing more of these businesses in general that have the poles and the ballards and all this other stuff in front of their glass doors and windows and stuff to avoid anybody that would just drive through there, smash and grab, gone in 60 seconds.
Yeah, because the best way to deter it is put something in the way.
Yeah.
Target does it even, and Target's known for that. And a lot of people don't know that those are for anti-theft reasons. They're not, to make it look pretty.
Or to accidentally run into when you're not paying attention and looking at your phone.
That'd be unfortunate.
That's never happened to Eddie before at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if you're a business owner here in Las Cruces in New Mexico, or just in general around the nation, this is something that is a nationwide problem, not just in Cruces, not just in New Mexico. This happens all over the place. We've seen all the videos from California, the dudes running in, doing the same shit. Usually they're adults in that situation, and it's unfortunate that we're dealing with kids now. And what's shitty is these kids are flaunting it online. Because we get sent photos from these kids, and we know what school they go to, they know who their parents are, and just they can't do much because of state statutes. And that's where we're limited. And to be honest, I feel if the parents know this is going on, they're a part of it, they need to be punished too as well. Because especially if they're putting their kid up for this, that's fucked up. If you're going to want to break the law and do crime, dude, do it yourself. Don't get your kid in on it. Your kid has a whole life ahead of them, and who knows, they may not turn out to be the kind of person that you are. And there's some people on the call that says, look, I was a troubled youth when I was younger, but luckily, I had an outlet to get away from it and saw the light, and I saw that, my wrongdoings and stuff, so I get it. I get that life. But at the same time, it's still not right, and, they need to be, they need to pay for what they've done. So, I have hope for these kids is what I'm saying. Right now, they're badass little kids. They could get, they could come out of this and become great people, or they could just end up going to jail and prison their whole life, and we know people like that. I know people personally who just in and out constantly, or they went back and they haven't got out yet. And it's because of shit like this.
Yeah. You always want to hope for the best, and you want to hope that there's a way to go ahead that the kids can turn things around and realize what's going on, and that this is not a path to go on. But then, some of these kids turn into adults, and like you said, it's the same thing over and over again. They're in and out. They're committing crimes. They've got a rap sheet that's as long as your arm. And that's like I said, one of the frustrating things that Chief Story was getting to is that this kind of same thing happens with the adults, and it all has to do with the way the statutes are written and the way that the judicial system will, I'm all for a second chance. Heck, I might even all be for a third chance. But when you get down to like sixth or seventh chance, you got to take care of this business,
Yeah, definitely. And, it's unfortunate that, this is happening to the industry, but it's important that we talk about this. And I do want to have another meeting like that with Chief Story in the future. So if anybody else wants to be a part of this, please let me know. I'd love to get you in on it. This time I mostly try to get as many people that have been affected by these break-ins and stuff. So people that were directly dealing with it, especially, the past few weeks, I hit them up. Even a few people that have been dealing with this on and off, I even hit them up too. Don't get me wrong. I didn't get to hit up everybody. I'm sorry if I didn't. I didn't not think of you on purpose. But, I was just trying to make sure that we get this figured out and start somewhere, let's start somewhere. Let's get a meeting. Let's figure out where the real issue is. And we figured it out. Now we're going to have to go to Santa Fe and try to get some laws changed so that way we can kind of redirect this, because it looks like the laws that we have when the kids were fearful of their parents, it worked. But these days they're not fearful of their parents, and sometimes their parents are right with them doing this stupid shit. So, there's something else needs to change. I'm not saying we need to do and go arrest everybody possible, but something needs to change, and people need to be held accountable a little bit more for the things that they do and for the things they fuck up. Because you shouldn't be able to drive a truck into a smoke shop, do $20,000 worth of damage, and then just get a slap on your wrist and some probation, and then it's off your record when you're 18.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds a little ridiculous. Like, I get it. We mess up. Like, if it was the kid that just took a juice from the gas station, like, by all means. But if it's a kid that's trying to end livelihoods, try to end lives, doing crazy shit like that, and then by all means, we need to do something else.
No. Absolutely. And one of the things that I was thinking about, and I didn't get a chance to mention in the meeting yesterday, because once Chief Story had to take off, and then everybody was gone real quick. Yeah. But that's the way that it happens. But, I think it's up to the community now to kind of get together and share your best practices, share the things that are going to go ahead and help keep the thefts down, because I'm sure it's not just, it's the big ones like this, but I'm sure that there are people trying to get their hands on there, or to take some stuff and find other ways to go ahead and get their hands on the product. But, if everybody could share their ideas on practices, like, okay, yeah, I was able to get these things put up in front of the windows. I went to this place. It cost this much. They can go ahead and give you a reference, or, hey, I had cameras placed here and here and here. So we were able to get some really good views of some of the people that took this. And I think the community has to come together, and all of the shops have to talk to each other and give them the best practices and the best ideas, so that, you might not be able to stop someone from driving a car into your business, but if you've got the camera set up in the right place, or the notifications and the different ways of getting things done, you can at least maybe try and catch these people. And I mean, it's going to take some time to get up to the legislature and try and get things done, but those things definitely have to, those take time, but they got to get done.
Yeah. And right now, what you can do if you're in Las Cruces is just move your operations to 24/7. Especially if you're, let's say, I need time to put up this new metal fencing that's going to be on. I'm going to move my business 24/7. You can do that. You don't even have to notify anybody. You can just set your time to 24/7, let people know, hey, we're open 24/7 for the next 2 weeks or whatever. Permanently, we're 24/7. That is something you can do right now that will drop your chances of getting broken into by a lot, like probably in the 90%. Everybody that I know in town that has done the 24-hour model, they didn't have any issues until they moved away from that model. And then people started breaking in and stuff like that. Because one of the dispensaries, they were 24/7, but they got broken into. And it was during the time that they were closed. It was like 2 hours or something like that. And they just happened to be closed. Someone came in and boom, that was it. And it was during the day.
Yeah.
So like, it doesn't matter the time of day for this. And in these instances, it's been happening early morning, late at night. All of these are tied together, and it's mostly the same people that's doing it. And that's pretty much what the information we got from the cops. They are still investigating it, so they can only share so much, which is fair. But when it comes to the businesses, please share as much information as you can with everyone else. So that way, one, your customers know, so they don't show up to a closed store. Two, the community knows. And three, the other businesses know too. Like, and I get it. You don't always want to help your rival or whatever, but in business, dude, we got to work together. We're all in this in the same industry. When we are dealing with something like this is bigger than your little rivalry that you have going on, or, whatever it is. If you both get taken out because people kept robbing you, then what was the point? Yeah. In the first place of the competition that you created.
I'll even put it this way. If you think your rival is going to get robbed, they're going to get burglarized, and they go out of business, and that's good for you. Well, you know what? If they go out of business, they're going to look for the next place to go for it. And that next place could be yours. And I would also say for everybody to even just keep an eye out. If you're driving around somewhere and, you notice some weird things that might be going on, right? There maybe somebody's hanging out, or, you see something else like that. I think someone even mentioned drones that might be flying around, taking a look right there, just like waiting for somebody to leave. Keep an eye on things, and keep an eye out for everybody. And like I said, as a community, I think everybody's going to have to step up and try and keep an eye on each other's backs. Get your, what? I got your six, man. You got to watch it.
Definitely. And who knows, maybe as a industry community, maybe we can do like a cannabis community watch. I know I said that as a joke yesterday in the chat group I have, but that might be a real thing that needs to happen. Maybe a couple employees, you pay them extra, or you yourself as the owner take up a shift where you just drive around the dispensaries, that people ask for, and you just keep an eye out. You could do a 6-hour shift or whatever we want to do. We can do it now, or you can hire an additional security team. I know that costs more money, but it's less money than what you're going to be paying if you have to, have a vehicle driving through your business, and there's $20,000 gone there plus on top of product. Yeah. So paying money now can save you money later when it comes to your security and stuff like that. So that's everything I have, really. That's pretty much everything that happened during the meeting. It was a really straightforward meeting, very helpful. I learned some stuff as well, and I think the industry learned some stuff, and I think the Chief Story learned some stuff about us as well too. And I think it really helped because we're all just trying to work together to make sure this works. As I said before, this isn't the traditional market anymore. This is a literal legal industry. You are a legal business, so you have certain rights under that now. So you have to treat it that way. And I'm glad everybody is taking those steps at least. It's just unfortunate that we don't have enough steps, and it kind of just leads to nowhere. And that's the unfortunate part where we're going to have to change the legislature. But that's everything I have pretty much for this. If you guys have any questions on, what you can do to, help the security of your business and this and that, I might even help a couple people in town, with security stuff, like the background stuff that I did in the military, security comes hand in hand with that, and, measures to get not, get broken into helps with that too. So if you guys need help, let me know. I'll even come down for free and help you guys out to, kind of figure out what you need to do. But yeah, I just want you guys to be able to thrive and keep going too. My business relies on you guys staying open, because I make hash rosin and I got to sell it to you. So, what good is my business if your business shuts down? So we're all in this together. It's a domino effect. If it affects you, it affects me and affects everyone else. So, Gino, do you have anything before we end today?
No, I think that's just about it. I mentioned all the things that I wanted to talk about with our little chatting session here. And, I completely forgot about your background. Yeah, that security thing could come in handy, Chad. Yeah. So, but I would just encourage everybody, like I said, as a community to, keep an eye on your fellow. I think you've said it before. If you're in the business, you're an advocate. So keep an eye out for your fellow advocates that are out there. If you're just driving by someplace and you happen to notice something weird, it doesn't take anything to maybe just give a call and say, hey, I think I saw something weird going on at this business. And maybe they can have somebody drive by, or the fact that maybe even whose shop it is, or something like, hey, you better check your cameras or check something looks weird, So, like I said, if you've got somebody's back, somebody else is going to have yours.
Yeah, exactly. And like what good is it if you sit there and just step on your competitor while he's already down? That's not right.
No, it's not cool.
At least offer a hand, pick them up, and then say, well, get it from here and we'll still compete. Like it's not fair to just watch people rot like that, because who knows, you could be in that same exact situation soon, the next day, whatever. It's just because you're in competition doesn't mean you have to be an asshole. That's it is what it is. I know the industry is tough, but when stuff like this happens, we do have to band together to kind of figure out a solution. So that's all I have for this week. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This was a short episode. I just wanted to give you guys an update. We didn't have a guest. I mean, I guess you want to consider Gino a guest, but we didn't have a guest today. Next week, we're going to start a 2-week special. So that's one reason why we're having this weirdness. We weren't even going to do an episode because we're preparing for that, but we're going to have a 2-week episode special for you guys coming up next week, and I will tell y'all more here soon. All right, Gino, get us out of here.
That's what they call a tease.
For next week. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Like, subscribe, whatever you got to do to stay in the know. All right, shoots.